So you stumbled upon a podcast. Hope you got your ladder. Sup, I'm Lada, and welcome to Functional Potheads. Today, we have Terp as a guest on our show. And Terp, introduce yourself.
Hey, what's up? I'm Terp. I'm an industry insider slash cannabis consultant, mostly focusing on concentrates and value-added products.
All
I've
right.
been around since about 2011, 2012.
All right. Thank you for joining us once again on another segment. Let's just jump right on into what you smoking on.
I am currently smoking on some homegrown sour pink lemonade and mac and cheese terp dough, some BHO with a little bit of Finnish CRC on it of my own concoction.
Okay, so wait. So did you like make the two separate ones and then mix them together? Or did you like cross the plans? It's weird that I'm asking that, but like extractionists are doing different things in the lab. And so I'm trying to figure that portion out. Like when you are, they want an image of what you're smoking on. But when you give me those two crosses, are you talking about the plant cross or are you talking about what you mixed up together to then dry it out?
So when I say that, I mean it is a mixed run. So it was both of those strains run together, fresh frozen lowers and larf from the trimming process right as it was taken down, essentially then thrown directly into a freezer, frozen, and then put into the extractor, frozen, processed, and then while it was in its extraction process was filtered through my own CRC blend and then, finished in a vacuum oven like most other things. But yeah, it's a little confusing. Sometimes people will use like a plus sign rather than an X, being like an X if it's been crossed, it's like a genetic cross, whereas like a plus sign is going to be a mixed run. I think the best option, at least in my opinion, is when people just name that run just whatever the terpene profile brings out in them when they smoke it, and then list whatever strains was in it. So you know what's in there, but you also understand the way that combination comes off.
Yes.
Because I think that's really what, at least for me as a consumer, that's what I'm caring about, is like, what does it taste like?
Yes.
So tell me what it tastes like.
Always about what it tastes like and what is the high I'm going to get, especially if you're a medicinal user.
Yeah.
If I'm searching for a certain level of terpenes to treat my disorder or what have you, that's what I really care about. So it's not even like what you call it. Like, is it going to hit my body the way I need it to? Like, so that's really important.
Yeah, I think it's, just like cannabinoid testing, there should be terpene testing for all flower. Anything that's like inhalable should have terpene testing.
Yes. Okay, so I am currently smoking on Scord's cake donut. Ooh, let me get that in the center.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love me some Scord.
Yeah, don't we all? It is such a hard bud to get in your rec shop.
I think they're woman owned.
Yeah? That would be amazing.
Yeah, I think they're woman owned and operated down in Vancouver, Washington, or somewhere near there.
Fire. It's such good bud. The taste on this, the crosses, the genetic history, London pound cake crossed with apple fritter, which I like about them is that they tell you where they got their seeds from, the genetic lineup of their strains. So even though it has a name for them, they're going to tell you what plants they crossed to get it. And that gives you a little bit more traceability on your products, and like we were talking before, they spend the extra money to include important information in their label. Hello.
Right. And also they know the genetic line of the genetics that they're growing, that they can actually list that. It's not just some random ass cut that they got from their homie that they're calling fucking gelato this week and Skittles next week. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of that too. And I think it also goes to the fact that there's a lot of non-standard things about the cannabis industry that the industry kind of is still sorting out. Do you list your lineage? Do you not list your lineage? How do you name things? And there's a lot of strains that have basically the same name that are completely different genetically and, finished product wise. And, Leafly's tried to do some things with it. And there's some other people that have tried to do some things. And I appreciate what is being done, but I don't think that there's a current solution available that I see on the horizon to that issue.
One thing I saw was the genetic coding, so the dyeing of but that takes a lot of effort and money to be able to like trace where it comes from, and then where it ends up
Yeah,
in your body. I think that would be cool, but not everyone can afford that right away.
absolutely. I also think that, some of the stuff that people are doing with blockchain and like the
Yeah.
NFTs, I don't want to
Yeah.
get into that whole thing because like I'm not that guy, but
Yeah.
there's some things that I think technology could help solve in regards to genetic lineage and keeping genetic lineage documentation in a way that is transparent and readily available to the consumer in a way that would inform their buying decisions that I think the market will have to ask for, and it's just not there yet.
Yep.
But I think that's something that comes along with more, because right now with the state by state operations that exist right now, there's no need for that. But I think once we're at a bigger level and you're playing on a multi state situation and you want to be able to show your standardization and blah, 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 I think that'll have to come.
It's going to matter. You are absolutely correct, and we'll get there in cannabis news. But first, the next thing that we're going to smoke, because when a joint is on more than one head, it doesn't take too long to get to the end of it. So we are smoking the Hash Cannon by Seattle Bubble Works, and I thought it was interesting. It's a Girl Scout cookies, a 2-gram hash joint. So they do a half-gram Temple Ball, 1.2 grams of flour, and 0.3 grams of bubble hash, all into this monster right here. So it's like 3 joints,
Whoa.
right? 3 joints, and then they tie the bottom with hemp wick for the design. But in the middle of these 3 joints is the Temple Ball. So I was like, well, damn,
Wild.
yeah, we're gonna have to kick it off the end of the show if we getting out here looking like a delicious cinnamon stick. Exactly. So if we getting out here, we getting out here. And that brings us on into our weed affirmation, which I didn't give you a heads up about, but I do on every show. I think that just like being concerned about the pesticides, what's your mindset when you're consuming cannabis and your purposes for consuming cannabis kind of feeds into it. And if you have a mantra or something to say while you're in this process, you can begin to change how you look at it. Like folks who's been stuck in a bathroom or hiding their cannabis use is always, they seem a little bit panicky around smoking, like, oh, who's going to see or what's going to happen? And then you get out here where it's more comfortable, where it's easy, and it's just a different way of living, and you can enjoy the weed a little bit more. So today's weed affirmation, and the last one of the group, would be there's always more weed. So, don't trip over losing that eighth. Don't do anything stupid over being shorted that gram, or the weed didn't hit you the way you wanted it to hit you. Don't worry about that. You know what I mean? Like, there's always more weed. So it's going to be grown. So just take 2 seconds, And that's today's affirmation.
I love it. It literally grows on trees.
It's like, please stop worrying about it. Now, let me get this lit. I don't even know if I needed a torch. We'll see what happens. I'm going to get this lit, and then we'll slide into cannabis news. I almost feel like I should have used my
That's
torch.
a commitment. That's a commitment right there.
Right? Wow.
Like a whole roll of sage.
Thank you.
You're blessing the whole room with that fucker.
Just a little bit right here.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's see if we're getting somewhere. Dylan, I'm gonna pass it and let you finish so I can get going on this show, bro. I think 2, maybe 3 of them are lit, but just like I'm trying. So, on episode 7, I promised that I would go into the U.S. Senate Drug Caucus article, and I definitely will, but I wanted to give an update on what's going down in Florida. And shout out to normal.org for keeping me up to date with what's happening legislatively, I guess. So, 2 bills regarding expungement, SB 468 and SB 470, are running through the state government, and SB 468 would allow individuals convicted of misdemeanor offenses involving in the possession of up to 20 grams of marijuana to petition the court to get their records expunged. So, first off, yay. You know what I mean? Because it's stupid. They're selling it. right now, medically, you know what I mean? And then separately, Bill 470 would exempt any marijuana offense that has been expunged from public records, ensuring that the expunged conviction remains confidential. So not only are they going to erase it, but they're like banning it from any being searched elsewhere. Jesus, I can't get these words out. And that shit has me high as fuck already. Oh my goodness. It's about to be an interesting rest of this show, Terp. I don't know if we're gonna make it, my guy.
You got your work cut out for you.
I know, because this shit's serious. But congratulations to Florida for also working on legislation. Like I said, regulatory overhaul is going to be the way forward. Everything that gets talked about is going to involve that some way, somehow, because it's all bullshit. Now, the Senate Drug Caucus. Well, that's not their name. The Drug Caucus is for short. That's actually going to be how you find them online. But their official title is the Senate Caucus on International Narcotics Control, which is why I told you it screamed real like jail, real criminal to me. I was like, I don't know if I want you talking to people about cannabis for me, because I feel like I'm going straight to jail. But the document they produced earlier this March was very helpful. It's 54 pages, not all of it necessary, but it's important. It's important that there are people in the Senate analyzing the situation right now. And this document was a comprehensive look at all of the barriers and all of the recommendations that they want to make to not only the DEA, the FDA, but other federal groups that oversee cannabis right now. So it was a complete analysis on what is needed to get us on the right track as a nation, and the steps needed before we get to federalization. Because if, I don't know, in your opinion, Terp, are we anywhere near damn well ready for a federal cannabis industry?
No, I mean, I'm right now, I would say I'm putting my money on federal decriminalization, or at least rescheduling of it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the Republicans are going to go. The Republicans can sell medical marijuana to their constituents.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, there's medical marijuana in fucking Utah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, the Mormons are down with medical marijuana. Like, I think that's going to be the paving road. And if you look at the old school kind of roadmap that was laid out by activists,
yes,
a lot of it was through medical marijuana, and then the normalization within society, and then the recreational stuff coming from that.
Yes,
that's where I put my money, is I think federal rescheduling that basically allows for all legal states to continue to do what they do, and allow any state that wants to go legal to go legal, but leaving it up to the states to decide, because there is an obscene amount of money in cannabis enforcement in the South, and the fucking police guilds are not going to allow that shit to fucking go lightly.
Oh man, you don't talk that talk, Terp. Okay, because I appreciate you, and that's why I have to do a blog and another little speech on not speech, but I want to engage in conversation on the current criminalization of cannabis.
Absolutely,
because they are eating twofold. Florida alone, different areas are decriminalized, but the whole state is not. So, so they're selling cannabis to people in different areas, and you're cool in different cities, but as a statewide, they still coming for you if your operation is too big.
Oh yeah, and the thing that kind of blows my mind is it's like that's kind of the tried and true thing. You know what I mean? It's like I remember when I was up in like BC in like the early 20 teens, like probably like 2013, maybe 2014, and like they were telling me that that's what the feds were doing to them up there.
Yeah,
was that because it was like basically legal in Vancouver, but if you got outside the city, it was the feds, and it was just highway robbery. You know what I mean? And that's what that's what I've heard personally from friends all over the country, is that the civil asset forfeiture, and basically cops just being like, wow, that's a lot of weed you got there, and then like you never seeing any charges, but just not having any more gear. You know what I mean? Is like, that seems like that's basically the reality these days.
Yeah. And it's frustrating. It's like you get two steps forward, you finally get all the money to get into the industry, you're there, and then it's gone, and you have to start over all over again.
Absolutely.
So this document they issued, full of facts, supported by research, and I wonder who funded that research. And we'll get to the lobbyists later on the show. But one of their findings is that the DEA and FDA internal process limits the quantity of cannabis research that can happen. So them taking forever to approve a researcher kind of slows down the knowledge we can gain from the plant. And it's obvious that we need to get more research on something before we allow it or pass legislation that governs the entire public. This is public health here. And so this caucus is saying for us to move forward as a nation and pass this regulation, then we need the science. And so for us to get the science, the government has to get better at allowing researchers to do their research. When they explained, and they broke it down in detail in this document, and I suggest everyone read it, but when they explained how circular the fucking process is and how like the DEA will start it, but then they have to send it to the FDA, but the FDA can't get it until this thing is there, and then the DEA's process for deciding that they've approved it is fucked up, and you might have to run through that a few times. I was like, damn, it can be up to a year before you get approved to be a researcher in cannabis. Now, what are you doing that entire time? Reapplying, you're waiting, you're sitting on stuff. Now say you get preclinical approval, you get sold some bud from the one dealer that the nation has right now, the University of Mississippi, I think it is. It's all of that clinical Michigan. There we go. All of the weed going into research comes from this one place, which means all of the weed that we consume in the rec market or the adult use market, they don't have all of those strains. They don't have all of those cuts. So they're only doing research on a very select set of bud that's grown in a very select way. So we're not even getting all of the effects we need studied.
On top of that, I remember reading a news article a while ago where a number of researchers were complaining to the federal government that all the weed they were getting was all moldy and full of stems and shit.
Yep.
Which sounds like, what your regular weed man hears on a regular basis.
Yep.
But yeah, that like basically like you're saying, it's all garbage. So how can any of the science be any good if all their researching is on some fucking mids-ass booth?
Yep.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, I think this is an important thing too, is that up until I think only a couple of years ago, the only research that was federally allowed to happen with cannabis was around addiction and abuse.
Yes.
There was no medical or any sort of benefit, and anything that they got associated with that had to be like tertiary to the addiction or abuse potential research that they got their permit for after going through that fucked up process that you just laid out, obviously.
Yep. And I'm glad that they opened it up. And they also in 2016 said, okay, we're going to allow for more sources, more farms other than the University of Michigan. But they didn't actually let it happen until 2020. So 2016, they announced it. We're going to start taking other sources. 38 people sent in their application or on the waiting list right now. And the caucus has assessed that based on the regulations that they dropped in 2020 for these applicants, it's likely that a large percentage of these applicants aren't going to make it into the program. So they're not going to actually make it through what they've been waiting years to get through. So it just speaks to what I've been saying all along. The DEA and the FDA do not have the best interest for cannabis consumers right now. And I think that's shitty. That's shitty because they are going to be the gatekeepers of the information we need going forward.
Yeah, they're just in bed with Big Pharma. They got money coming from other places that they got to worry about. But yes, you're right.
Listen, you trying to get us caught up, huh? I'm okay with it because I'm ready.
Why do you think I'm going by turf? You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. I don't come find me. Listen, we can talk about it, but maybe y'all should just stop being assholes, and we wouldn't have to have these real ass
everyone
conversations.
deserves some words.
Yeah,
right? You know what I mean.
Yeah, freedom of speech. I haven't lied yet. All right, so they had a couple of other recommendations. The National Institute of Health, they want them to crack down on their research on the short-term and long-term impacts associated with high-potency cannabis, and jointly with the FDA to make recommendations as to which states should cap the potency of products, including vaping products. So basically, that argument that they laid out is backed by, one, their concern of the increased number of kids getting into cannabis infused products, the new cannabis use disorder that has been medically documented and like being proposed, and then the risk of psychosis study, which we've already analyzed on previous episodes. So all of that right now is fueling legislation on capping THC. And I saw Dr. Rachel Knox, who is a, scientist in cannabis and a woman of color. She is a Black woman, actually speak about it. She's like, for us to have federal cannabis, we are going to have a cap on THC because we are dealing with the public. They are concerned about children. And I think, how are you going to come up with that number? 15 is ridiculous. 45, some people are like, whoa, that's too much. So where do you set these lines at? The psychosis is based off of their genetics and their family history. And how many people know that? And 2, mind your damn kids. I am so sorry that my cannabis use keeps getting hindered by the fact that you can't figure out a safe location to keep your kids out of it. I am all for the packaging being tighter and more complicated, but I didn't have no fucking children. And I want my edibles, and I want them to taste like something. So mind your fucking kids. And if you want to slap those parents with a fine for doing that, I'm down for it. If you want to recommend and put a general statement out there for pregnant women not to consume cannabis because the fetus is absorbing THC through the bloodstream and that could hurt the developing mind, and that's your reasoning for capping it at 21, I'm all fucking for it. I am over 21 and I'm not trying to carry no babies. But stop fucking up my happiness for the sake of all kids, like everyone in the world is planning on having kids. I'm just saying. So that was my analysis of that section and that recommendation. I'm for it, but maybe let's have some realism, a little dose of realism with these recommendations. Terp, what do you think about capping the THC level as an extractor? Because that definitely fucks your game up a little bit.
I got some mixed feelings about it. I think that, historically that has been a successful thing. Like that was done in Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. Like the way that they make their edibles, it requires that it can only be made from the actual flower. Yeah. You can't make it from concentrates, or at least that was like the policy for a long time. So I think that is like something that I can like hear, but generally speaking, I think it's just a bunch of baloney, just like what you were saying. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not like they cap the volume of alcohol that you can buy, and that shit is way more fucking deadly. And kids know how to drink liquids. Most kids don't know how to fucking like roll up a doobie or something, or like fire up a dab. I get the edible thing, but like what you're saying, we are in a fucking world of consumerism. Like make me a package that abides by your fucking criteria. Sell that shit to me. Like that's an easy problem for capitalism to solve, and like let it solve it rather than saying that it's not something that should be solved.
Yes.
I also think that it's like really dangerous. Like if I was a legislator and I was trying to eliminate the black market, I would think of like that being the most problematic thing about that, because then you would basically be guaranteeing the black market a slice, which would be everything that is quote unquote high potency.
Yes.
And that would basically be like everyone. And maybe that's like how they do their decriminalization shit, and it's like that's not the case in legal states, but in non-legal states it's like if you have low potency cannabis products, it's not a crime anymore, it's just like a ticket or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then high potency products is like the same shit. I mean, that is like the same kind of bullshit that would cause another set of problems, but like I would wholeheartedly assume that the government could fuck some shit up like that any day of the goddamn week. You know what I mean? Like that's their prime directive.
There's the bread and butter.
Exactly. So I think that's the one thing we can just assume is that if they do end up putting limits on THC, it's going to fuck some shit up. Either they're not going to get what they want, or they're going to be, creating a slice of the market that is guaranteed for the black market.
Yes, that's what I liked about this article drafted by the Drug Caucus, as I'm going to refer to them going forward. They acknowledged that point of view, and they also acknowledged the different current policies that are across the nation, because different states have regulatory process. It's about the milligrams. Israel has it, as you mentioned, Amsterdam. So there's different policies that are in play right now. We just haven't figured out what is going to work best for the nation. And overall, the voters are like, fuck you and your limits. So we'll see what happens. I think that it's a good read. It's easy to read. I was expecting it to be in a lot of legalese, but it wasn't. And I felt that it was a great way to end this season, going through this, because it sums up all of the things that the industry is facing right now, and should be what's discussed on our Senate floor when they're talking about cannabis. The only thing I think is missing is an activist themselves being there and saying their piece. And that kind of goes to the next article that I have in Cannabis News, which refers to lobbyists.
How exciting.
How exciting. I mean, lobbyists themselves, I always refer to them because if you know anything about politics, money runs it. And how do you get money in a legal way? You lobby, right? You fundraise, you support a certain person because they're going to run with your idea. Like, that's just how our system is organized. And how this refers to cannabis right now, if you were looking for one to support, I shouted them out earlier in the episode, normal.org. They have been lobbying for cannabis reform and cannabis policy for the longest. I do think that sometimes they lack the lens of equity, but they've always been there for the true consumer, the true pothead, you know? So I would feel comfortable donating my money to them. This new coalition, this new lobbying group launched, and I thought they were funny. They were a little bit funny to me. So Politico dropped the article on them, and it was basically an announcement like, hey, this new cannabis coalition is coming out. And you start reading it and you're like, oh, this is going to be good. They actually care about equity. Like, this is going to be banging. So it's the Coalition for Cannabis Policy, Education, and Regulation. So that's their official name. And I was like, oh, shit, I like that already. You know, that makes me feel less like I'm going to jail, like the drug caucus. And when you start reading their announcement, they're talking to leaders in the community. They're talking about equity. They're just saying all those key points. But something, I got kind of close to the end and I was like, damn. Y'all got me again. You know what I mean? You got me again, you fucking lobbyists. The Coalition Center of Excellence is comprised of subject matter experts and does not serve as endorsements from any organization. Those experts include an alcohol responsibility group, fucking insurance agents and brokers, Molson Coors beverage company, a hospital, some like state legislators, a convenience store. Who the fuck are they? What do they know about cannabis regulation or cannabis use? Why would I want them being the people that lead the board of an organization that is supposed to lobby for cannabis policy reform? Like, why would I want anyone associated with alcohol, which has been associated with the prohibition of cannabis from, I don't know, the very fucking beginning? Where's your knowledge on that, Terp? How do you feel?
I mean, it's weird. Like from what I've learned, but I don't know is like necessarily true, was just that originally prohibition of cannabis came from a paper mill,
yes,
and lumber guy who was threatened by hemp fiber,
yes,
and so on. And so that's what basically led to the whole,
initial prohibition,
reefer madness,
yeah,
blah, 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 and so on. But yeah, I mean, I think it just is so telling that their, bottom line is threatened in their eyes so aggressively that they're willing to go to such lengths and spend such money to try to prevent cannabis from making its inevitable legalization momentum build to a point where it comes to fruition. And I think it's just that a lot of those businesses don't understand that if they were to pivot there's probably a lot more money to be made there than selling alcohol. Because I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think only 1% of the actual population consumes a like monetarily significant amount of alcohol or
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Yeah.
And like, I have to assume that more than 1% of the fucking population smokes weed every once in a while.
Yes, yes. That article definitely dropped the new stats. Like the 2019, the numbers were in Washington State, or I think tripled. It was crazy. Like nationwide, basically the consumption of cannabis went up in 2019.
Yeah. And
Uh,
I can only imagine 2020 was fucking through the roof too, because what
yeah,
else are you fucking doing?
exactly. Hello, COVID. So you're right. They not only are they threatened, but you would go so far as to just start an inside group to lobby for cannabis so you know what's happening at all times. You're already like on the other side, funding the Republicans on the back end through those measures of lobbying. But
Yeah, I
now,
mean they're on their back foot.
yeah,
You know what I mean? They're trying to figure out how to come back at it because it already has all this momentum rather than just continuing to keep it suppressed like how they had been for so long.
yep, yep. And I was kind of waiting to see how they were going to respond. And next thing I know is boom, here we go. It's on the table. And I thought, perfect. What a way to end it. Find true organizations to back because this caucus, I think they touched on a lot of key information, but don't be blinded by the bullshit, these clickbaits. Like, read into who is funding the research, who is supporting these organizations, because you'll end up being lost in the sauce when you're reading these headlines. You know what I mean? And I thought that was kind of a good way to end our season with cannabis news. So we're going to take a quick break and get back with you.
The Bakersmen Collective presents.
I think there's two ends of the spectrum, right? You got Seth Rogen on one side, who's like has a stoner persona and is like totally on brand, and it makes sense for those types of celebrities to get into cannabis, right? And I support it because I think that they're the ones that normalize it. Same thing with like I think it's like Jim Belushi or whatever
Yep. Grown
in
in Oregon.
Oregon. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like he has his own brand, and I'm into that type of thing. On the other side of that, and I don't remember who it is, but there's a really interesting write up somewhere on the internet. But during that whole like vape gate thing,
Yeah.
what ended up happening, blah 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 blah. The company that was selling the honey cut, which was the vitamin E oil that people were cutting distillate with and making vape carts that was like giving people all these crazy ass lung diseases and stuff.
Yes.
That was like a B-list actor,
Oh.
or like I should probably say like D-list actor, who then ended up like fleeing, and I don't remember his name, so I'm not going to try to like make it up or whatever. But like, it can go both ways,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
It's like, the green rush affects people differently, and like just because you're a celebrity doesn't mean you know what you're doing when it comes to like being an entrepreneur or like having safe like practices when you're developing products. Like, I think a lot of people just see money. That's what my experience has been, is that like a lot of people who like either have a lot of money or want to make a lot of money like see the cannabis as like an opportunity rather than just like any other thing that like takes a lot of hard work and like dedication and understanding of the industry and whatnot. It's not like you can just throw money at it and it like comes right back at you tenfold.
Yes. Yes. The audience was saying yes, they love his stuff, and his is referring to Seth Rogen, and he makes beautiful vases and ashtrays as well. So I'm gonna check it out. I wouldn't mind supporting someone who cares about it. I totally agree with what you're saying, and that was the point I was making in the vlog that I recorded. So tune into that, and we kind of just jumped right back into the show, but you can hear more of Terp's thoughts on concentrates and the great conversation that we're having on the Potheads Pondering segment dropping on our YouTube. We also wanted to discuss that whole Delta 8, Delta 9 kind of little situation
Sure.
to give you a kind of taste. Go ahead.
Yeah. So just like I was thinking about the news and whatnot, and what's kind of like in the zeitgeist, so to speak, of the cannabis industry, both like in the legal and not legal spaces. And I think one of the things that's been piquing my interest, at least, there's a lot of people out there who've been doing a conversion from CBD isolate,
Yeah.
because CBD is being super overproduced right now because everyone and their mom knows how to grow hemp because it's a fucking weed, and so their CBD isolate prices have dropped through the roof, and just like into the next apartment, and then like probably two apartments below it, you know what I mean, just like keeps on falling. I remember when I started, it was like maybe like $20 a gram, even at like the kilo price, and like now you can find it for like 50 cents a gram
Wow.
at the kilo price. You know what I mean? So like, I'm not good at math, but like that math doesn't check out.
No.
I guess is the point that I'm trying to make. So people have been realizing that you can convert CBD into delta 8 THC. So delta 9 is the activated form of the THCA, or what the cannabis plant actually produces. Normally that activation is done via heat. There's some other ways that you can do it, but generally speaking, you're doing a perfect example of making some delta 9 right there by combusting that flower. So long story short, when you're converting CBD into delta 8 THC, which is a less psychoactive version of THC, but is still technically regulated, it falls under a weird loophole that basically classifies it as a cannabis product, but it's still hemp.
Yes.
And so you're still allowed to sell it as a hemp product, even though it is technically a cannabis product. And so there are entire dispensaries and West Coast style stores in illegal states that are selling 100% Delta 8
Texas,
products.
Tennessee,
fucking Wisconsin.
I think the Carolinas, something like
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
they pushing it right now. Doing whatever.
And so that's a big thing. And I think that it, in one way, I find it really inspiring, because it means that we're getting THC to a lot of people that otherwise didn't have reputable, outlets for product, and that they can go about doing that. But it also worries me to some degree, because that conversion process isn't super well known, and we very well may be making compounds that may be dangerous for people to consume, and there isn't good research about it. But it's a two-sided sword there. But I think that it's something that people should be thinking about and paying attention to and asking around about, because I think that's going to be something that's going to be really playing a big role in how people experience cannabis outside of legal states moving forward.
And do you use Delta 8? Because I've tried it. I have a Delta 8 syringe upstairs right now, and I'll say, I love the effects of it. But I am curious. I know that it's an unknown thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I personally, I've consumed both conversion Delta 8 and also Delta 8 that was made from THC, because you can also make Delta 8 in your distillation process, intentionally or unintentionally. And so I consume it. I don't personally have like a worry about it. I'm more worried about like that, like real low quality, like out the back door type shit that'll like make the next, Vapegate 2.0, but it's not people's lungs collapsing. It's like their brains rotting or something.
Yes. And then kills the whole industry.
Right. Yeah. It makes everyone look like a fucking idiot.
Yeah. So since that Vapegate stuff, I'm still to this day answering questions at the dispensary about that stuff. Like, they're like, okay, so you remember what happened way back then? Like, does anything here have that in it? And I'm like, wait, it never did. Like, Washington Market never had it in the first place. So then I have to explain it to them. It's because the news doesn't ever do. They'll put the fear of God, of goddesses, like they'll put it in the masses, and they'll never walk it back. They'll never calm or douse the fire, and that's what I hate about that shit.
No, they're just gonna keep hyping it up because fear sells.
Yeah, for sure. So now that we covered all of that, I think that wraps up cannabis news for sure. Let's slide into Light Up and Listen. And I don't have too much this week. Nothing new, I would say. I just got lost in the random shuffle of my library. But Chica, I'm not quite sure the gender she goes by. And it's probably in her bio because she's that type of Pisces. But Once Upon a Time EP. It bumps. I like her storytelling ability and how her music goes from rap to singing. And I think that's a new thing that everyone's talking. Not new, but a hot subject matter for all of the music bloggers out there is about how all the rappers are now singers. And I don't see anything wrong with it. I feel like Disney Channel been made it a requirement for you to do more than one damn thing out there. So I don't know why you were able to slide into the music industry and kind of just skate by with being able just to rap and not even be able to write your own rhymes all the time. Like, you could just say the words. Like, now we've got levels of things that we require an artist to do. Sing, rap, write your own verses, whatever. So, like, just get to it. You know what I mean? If you want to, that level of fame. And my favorite rapper, Chance the Rapper, dropped The Heart and Tongue. And that's just a video. I can't find it on SoundCloud. I can't find it on iTunes or Spotify. And it totally makes sense for him to drop a music video, because he usually gives out his music for free first. And YouTube is just like, you can go and click it and play. The streams, he gets paid. He gets paid on the streaming on the back end, of course. That's how, like, YouTube works. But besides that, the video was dope. I think it's an example of where all artists need to go. The use of captions to play with the scene as opposed to just being on the scene. So, like, as he's rapping, the captions are coming out and going to the beat. That I thought, like, thank you, forward thinking. Him and his brother have been on that in their video production already and making it inclusive. Keep up at it. That's all I gotta say. Keep doing it. Anything you've been listening to, Turk?
Oh, that's a good one. Honestly, I'm like a big Daft Punk fan.
Dope.
And they broke up like a couple weeks ago. So, like, I've just been going back and, like, listening through the highlights of that, which has been trippy as fuck.
The audience said, what? How'd you miss that bubble? Yeah, they definitely, like, after 25 years, they broke up.
Yeah. It was wild.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I've been kicking it a lot too. And then also I found this artist who, like, is like an old school guy that I guess, like, people know about, but, like, I just discovered, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Nujabel or BES. Yeah, the Japanese producer.
Yeah, and like I heard about him because he produced. Were you telling me about him too? No, but he produced. Is it Samurai Champloo? He produced the intro. Yes, and he's no longer alive. His shit is crazy, bro.
Yeah, it slaps. That
it's
shit slaps.
So dope.
Yeah, I've been playing this new game that came out that's a Viking game. It's like a Viking survival game. Not to get into that, but I've been just cranking his albums while I've been playing that.
It gets you through it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful kind of, like, nostalgic hip hop that I wish I knew about in my younger days.
Yeah, I definitely am going to play that tomorrow. Thank you, because you're the second person that has brought him up in maybe a week or so, recommending or saying that they were listening to that. Yeah, definitely a short life on that artist right there.
Sad days.
Yeah, sad days, but always beautiful art, and the memory lives on. So before we get to the outro, thank y'all for joining us and making our way through season 3, because it had its ups, its downs, but we made it around, and I'm so appreciative of everyone that was involved in the making of this season. I think now is a good time to put a pause on cannabis news, because we know that it's all going to be regulatory overhaul. So it's just going to be more repetition. So I think we could take a good pause and come back when something important has started to happen. Give you summations and quick updates. So thank you for joining us once again. It's dope that you took the time to have a J with us. Until the next session, remember, we're just a few functional potheads out here trying to bring light and truth about cannabis.